Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. I'm really excited that you're here. I have some fantastic projects. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare and I'm part of the awesome playlist challenge hosted by Heidi Sonboul DIY. More to come on all of that. Let's get right into the projects. Here we go with DIY number 1. For this project, I am going to be using a funnel from the automotive section of the Dollar Tree, as well as some men's tube socks, also from the Dollar Tree. I'm using some of these glass beads that you can also get from the Dollar Tree, as well as a Dollar Tree mop head. And then I'm also going to be using a little bit of fiber fill from my stash. So the first thing I'm going to do is take one of the socks and I'm just going to slide it right down over the funnel. You saw I didn't even take the label off the funnel. I pulled it down over, thought about rolling it back and then decided against it. And then with the second sock, I am going to fill the bottom of it with some of these glass beads. If I were to be purchasing bags of the glass stones or beads, whatever you want to call them, from the Dollar Tree, I think one bag would probably be sufficient. Maybe 1.5, just to give you an idea. But it's really just to make sure that this is going to be able to stand up on its own and be anchored. And then you saw I didn't cut the sock, I just rolled the sock into itself until it was about the height that I wanted it. So now I'm coming in on the mop head and using my wire cutters to cut those little 2 plastic elements on either side, and you saw that that just kind of broke away after I cut them and I was able to get all of those threads out. Taking some of my fiber fill and stuffing this sock. This is going to be our body, so I want it to be nice and plump, and so just getting it to the plumpness, if you will, that I want it at, so that I make sure that it'll also be able to stand up on its own. Then I'm taking a number of the yarn pieces from the mop head and I'm just lining them up because this is going to make for our gnome's little beard, and I just wanted everything to be even because I didn't want to have to trim anything off. So I folded them all in half and I'm tucking them into the top of the sock and arranging them, and once I have them the way I want them, I'm taking our funnel covered with the sock and placing it on our gnome's little head. Then I'll come in with some hot glue and I'm going to start at the back and just make sure I've got that all secured, and then I'll come in around the front and do the same. So coming in around the front, do the same thing there. And just make sure that it's all nice and secure the way that I want it. I'm being pretty generous with the hot glue there. And then I also decided to form his little hat a little bit more so it's pointy at the end. Again, I didn't even bother cutting it. I just formed it the way I wanted it, used a little hot glue, got it to be a little bit pointy towards the end, and I was all good there. So now I'm coming in and I am unraveling the yarns. Now you could totally leave them as is. I just felt like it looked like dreadlocks. So nothing wrong with dreadlocks, but I wanted it to be a little bit more full and fluffy with more strands. So that was the way that I decided to go. So I'm unraveling all of those yarn strands. And then I pulled out my ARTEZA felt, and this is self-adhesive felt, and I'm just searching for the colors that I want. I picked out a brown that I thought would match the socks, and then I also pulled out a peach color that would be like a skin tone. Now I set that aside for a second and pulled out a little styrofoam ball. This is what I'm going to use for his nose, and I stuck it on the end of a pick that I had left over from some florals, and I am just going to go ahead and give that a coat of plaster chalk paint. And then I'm also coming in with, I think this one is called Victorian. It's like a light pink. And I just want to make his little nose a little bit more pink. Excuse me. So while that's drying, I pulled out these hearts that I got from the Dollar Tree as well. If you saw my haul the other day, you're recognizing a lot of these supplies, but using a wooden heart and then this red felt heart, and I am going to go ahead and secure the felt onto the wood. I just wanted it to have a little bit more structure, which is why I'm layering it like this. And then I was also trying to figure out how to cover up that hole. Just go easy with the hot glue. I used a little bit too much there, and I was noticing it was kind of peeking through the felt. I didn't think that the felt would have it go through it. I thought it was thick enough, but just word to the wise. You ended up not being able to see it once it was dried, but I don't know, it was bothering me at the time. But then I decided I was going to go ahead and thread through some of this pink ribbon that I had picked up on sale at Michael's. If you decide that you want to do this, I do recommend weaving that through the heart, the felt heart, before you attach it to the wood piece. Obviously, I was able to do it, but it would have been a lot easier if I had done it in a different order. So now I'm just tying my little bow, and I'm just making sure that it's going to be positioned in a place that covers up that hole that I was talking about earlier. Just a plain old little shoelace bow. So now I am going to create my little hands with the peach toned felt. So I'm drawing out a little mitten hand, and I will actually create 4 of these. So 2 for each hand, 1 for the front of the hand, 1 for the back of the hand. So you can see there, I've got my 4 pieces, front and back for each side. I'm just making sure that they line up. And I'm going to sandwich his little hands around the heart. This is how he's going to be holding the heart. So peeled off the little paper. I did not get it at the right angle when I first put it on here, but you know, happy accident. I ended up just deciding that I would have him hold the heart at an angle. So I actually think I like it better than having him hold the heart straight on. So I kind of lined it up with his little chest to see where I wanted to place the other hand, and then now you can see me putting that down as well. And again, just sandwiching it between the little felt pieces, because again, these are sticky, and so they're adhering to each other, and it just allows him to be holding the little heart. So now I'm going to come in and do the same idea with making some arms for him with the chocolate brown felt. And you're seeing me cut off the end of the back side, or yes, at the end of the back side of his arm. So I'm showing you here. So once I had all the pieces exact, I did cut off a chunk on either side, because I want to leave the front part of that adhesive exposed so that I have a way to adhere it to his body. So hopefully that makes sense. So you can see the front is going to be longer than the back. So now I'm applying the back side of his arm first, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply the front side of his arm, which again will be longer than the back. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that non-stick wrap that was on the back of it to just protect that while I work on the other one. Did the same thing there. And now I'm going to wrap it around his little body, making sure that those yarn pieces are out of the way, and just sticking the felt to his little sock body. So you can see there how I did that. So now once the little nose is dry, I am parting the ways with his beard, and I'm going to stick that right down inside of there. Actually, is it hair or a beard? Maybe it's both. I don't know. It's coming down from his head, so I guess maybe it is hair. but it's serving the purpose for both, I guess. And came in with some hot glue and just made sure that that was nice and secure. Just fluffing him up, and there he is. So today's video is sponsored by Skillshare, and if you're not already familiar with it, Skillshare is an online learning community where you can find thousands of classes on all sorts of topics like illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and so much more. Their classes include a combination of video lessons and a class project, and you'll find classes for any skill level. And because it's all online, you can take the classes when it suits your schedule, and you can learn at your own pace. Most of the classes are under 60 minutes with short lessons that can fit into your schedule, and I so appreciate that because my life is crazy with my full-time job and my YouTube channel. So as part of the sponsorship, Skillshare has provided me with a free trial, and I've been taking advantage of classes on blogging because I'm getting ready to launch a new website. I also can't wait to take some of their classes on video editing and graphic design. So I encourage you to check it out because the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a free trial of premium membership so you can explore your own creativity. DIY number 2. For this project, I am going to be using my Moss Waverly chalk paint, as well as the craft sticks. These are like tongue depressor sticks. The heart that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, this one's all glittery, but we're going to be painting it over. I also have 4 frames, also from the Dollar Tree, all the same. They have to be identical. And then a bunch of greenery that I have from Walmart. So I'm just taking off the little extra heart from the middle there, as well as the hanger, and I'm going to go ahead and paint this. Now, if you watch my channel a lot, you know I normally just paint right out of the bottle. In this instance, I am not, because this is covered with glitter, and I didn't want to risk having glitter end up on my paintbrush and then me sticking my paintbrush into the bottle. So that is why I did that. But I coated it both sides, set it aside to dry, and now I am working on my frames. So I started pulling these all off and then realized that I wasn't going to need to use the back of these frames at all. So you can just leave them on and just take the whole back off. So went ahead and set everything else aside. Then I also took my glass out. I am going to be using the glass, so I just set that aside for a little bit later. Got all my frames together, and then I started using my STARBOND. This is the medium STARBOND CA glue or super glue. And you know what? I was struggling with the medium for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the type of material that the frame is made out of, but you can see I'd flipped it over. I tried, securing it with my little vice clips, and it just wasn't working. So I came in with some hot glue and just kind of smoothed that out in between the crevices. I want to be able to come in afterwards with some of the craft sticks to make it a little bit more secure, so I didn't want the hot glue sticking up too much. So that's what my thought process was there. So now I'm like, well, how do I deal with this gap? Thought about hot glue. I didn't do it. I came in with my thick STARBOND glue, which is also a wood filler. Now, these frames are not wood. They're like a heavy foam, I would say. So the STARBOND actually did serve its purpose here, and it filled in that gap for the most part, but not entirely. So I'll show you in a minute what I do. And I couldn't tell that it wasn't completely filled in until after I came in with the paint. So I'm just doing a heavy dry brush with my plaster by Waverly. This is chalk paint. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, I can see all these gaps. I don't like it. So what did I do ultimately? Yeah, I came in with the hot glue and I just ran a bead all the way down along each of these gaps. And then I just went back over it with the plaster to cover that up. And it actually worked out quite well. And this little thing is pretty darn secure now. So then I flipped it back over. I placed all of my glass pieces in, and then I came in with my hot glue to secure them in so that they would be a little bit more permanent and fixed in, because again, I'm not putting the backs back on these, so I needed to make sure that the glass was going to be secure. And I just did hot glue on 2 of the edges. So now there was a little bit of a gap between the glass and where I would want to put these craft sticks to make sure that everything is secure. So, and I don't want to be able to see the sticks through the glass. So I ended up cutting them down the middle, and then I slid the half craft sticks in underneath the little lips that are there to secure the backs of the frames. I hope this is making sense. It's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully you're getting it based on what I'm doing here. And then I just ran a whole bunch of hot glue along that, and then I added another popsicle stick. So like those little lips that hold the backings of the frames were sandwiched between the 2 layers of the craft sticks. And then I added them around the perimeter also, just to help secure the frame in place, or the glass, excuse me. So now, once I have that together, I set that aside for right now, and I'm coming back to my heart now that it's dry, and I'm pulling apart all my picks. You guys know me, I'm always pulling apart the picks. I did try to see if maybe I could keep them intact, and it just wasn't gonna happen. They were just too large for this little heart and what I wanted to do. So I came in and one by one, I attached these little pieces of the greenery picks to the heart, and I just kept layering it. I tried to go from the inner edge at first and then from the outer edge just to make sure that everything was covered. And then I kind of kept alternating back and forth from the outer edge to the inner edge, from the inner edge back out to the outer edge, and just went around the entire perimeter of the wreath form. Well, what I'm calling a wreath form. So once that was all done, I have my little greenery heart here. And I came back in with some ribbon. This is like a light gauzy kind of ribbon. And I thought I wanted to hang it from the inside of the wreath. And I thought, well, if I can put it on either side of the little point, it'll help to define my heart shape a little bit better. But as I was working with it, I'm looking at it and I'm trying to get it to work, and I just wasn't happy with the way that it was looking. So ultimately I decided that I wasn't going to do it that way. I just didn't care for it at all. Here I am still playing with it. How long am I going to play with it before I give it up? So yeah. So I finally decided it wasn't working for me. So instead I flipped it over. I took the same ribbon and I folded over the ends, and I'm just going to attach it to the back of my little wreath, for lack of a better term. So once that was all glued down and secured, I went ahead and flipped it back over. Of course, I wanted more glue. Flipped it back over, and then I centered it on my window frame, and then I'm going to attach it to the back of the frame. So I just ran a nice bead of hot glue down that craft stick. I probably did it like 3 or 4 inches just because I wanted to make sure that that was nice and secure and not going anywhere. And then I trimmed that off, tucked my ribbon under, and I went ahead and glued that down some more. So now I decided it needed a little something more, and so I'm just making a little loop bow with some scraps of the ribbon that I had. So basically you just create a loop and then you tie another piece of ribbon around the center to make your tails. That's really all that you do. And then I used those tails to also attach it to the ribbon at the top. Once that was done, I went ahead and I dovetailed my ends just to finish it off.
Hello. So if you are new, my name is Corie. Thank you so much for joining me. I love doing all kinds of different crafts and DIY projects, always on a budget, usually Dollar Tree, thrift flips, trash treasure, things of that nature. But I always strive to make them high end, so you'll be really, really proud to display the items in your home. I post every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and I go live with you every other Sunday. So love connecting with all of my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed already, I hope that you'll consider doing that and joining our little crafting community. And please be sure to hit that little bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. If you are returning, you all mean the world to me. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a subscriber. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. And as I mentioned earlier, this video is part of a big playlist that's being hosted by Heidi Sonboul DIY. It's a Valentine's Day challenge playlist. So I hope that you'll check out the link in my description box so that you can go and watch all the other crafters that are participating in this challenge. Lots of fantastic crafters out there. If you're also not already familiar with Heidi Sonboul, I hope you'll check out her channel. Heidi is fantastic. She is wonderful to the crafting community. She has fantastic projects. She's got the biggest heart in the world and just all around super. So I hope you'll check her out as well. But for now, let's go ahead and get right back into the crafting.
DIY number 3. For this project, I am using a puzzle from the Dollar Tree. I'm also using my Adirondack white chalk paint by Home Decor. I thought I was going to be using my Orient, or no, not Orient, Imperial. I don't know why I always want to call it Orient, but Imperial red chalk paint, but I ended up not using that. I also thought I was going to spray paint all of these white, and I did try taking them outside to spray paint them, but the weather was kind of rotten and it was super windy, so ultimately I ended up deciding it wasn't really working, and I brought them back in and I figured I would paint them once I had them put together. So I'm just using up all of the the puzzle pieces, placing them in a heart shape. Just wanted to make sure it was going to work. And now I am creating just a simple outline of the hearts. And I'm going to come back in and fill in the gaps with my hot glue with the other pieces. So you can see at the top, I had already started gluing things. And when I first started trying to glue it all together, I was finding that I needed to have a more stable base on it. So that was why I ended up kind of taking everything apart and going back and doing it the way that I did. So now I've flipped it over. I just want to make it a little bit more stable and secure. So I'm just using these large craft sticks. These are not the tongue depressor sticks. They are the medium-sized ones. So larger than popsicle sticks, but smaller than the tongue depressors. And I am just creating little support pieces so that everything is secure. And then I'm coming back in with my chalk paint. This is the Adirondack White by Home Decor. And I am giving it 2 coats of the white paint, and I painted both the front side as well as the back side. So now I've got my new ARTEZA self-healing cutting mat. I am so excited about this because it's a 24-inch mat, and I was thrilled that they agreed to send this to me because my larger mat is just, it gets to be too cumbersome sometimes. And I do have a new ARTEZA discount code in the description box if that's of interest to you. So I'm taking a piece of scrap foam core that I had, and I'm cutting it down using my ARTEZA cutting mat, my Dollar Tree little craft knife, and then also my ARTEZA I think it's called an architect's ruler, but I like it because it's like a tri-sided, so it's got like a thing up on top that I can kind of grasp onto. I'm just cutting that down. I cut the board down to be about 9 inches long by 4 inches tall. So just making sure that it's the right dimensions, it's all even. And then I came in again with my Adirondack white chalk paint, and I'm giving it just a single coat of paint on both sides, and also making sure that I get the edges. So here I was showing you, this was on clearance for $2.99 at Michael's. I actually used one of these ribbons a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's super cute ribbon package for not a whole lot. So I was excited to find that. But I picked out this little gingham ribbon or buffalo check ribbon to use on this sign, and I'm just wrapping a piece around either end, and I'm going to secure that in the back with some hot glue. I had just folded over the edge to make it nice and neat. And coming in with my ARTEZA acrylic paint marker. I love these, you guys. And I'm not sure what color this is actually called. I should have looked it up before I started doing my my editing here, but it's really a pretty fuchsia color, for lack of knowing the actual name. But love these paint markers. So I came in and just took my time. Remember that this is sped up about 3 times. So I really am taking my time with this. I am, you know, drawing the letters, not handwriting the letters. But I don't know, I thought I was being clever and saying I love you to pieces. Get it? I hope you're enjoying today's projects. If you are, please do give me a thumbs up. It really does help support my channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, I hope that you will and that you'll continue to join me here. I really enjoy connecting with all of you, and I love all of the comments you leave for me, and I do try my very best to respond to every single one of you. So I hope that you'll leave me a comment too and let me know what your favorite project is from today's video. So now I am going to take my little sign and adhere it to the, would you call this a wreath? My little puzzle wreath. And then I'm taking another length of ribbon and I'm going to weave that through some of the gaps in the puzzle pieces to create my little hanger tie. And I don't know if you noticed before, I had forgotten to mention when I was using my paint marker, the tips are reversible. So it's got a wide end and then also a pointed tip end. You just want to make sure that once you use the pointed tip that you flip it back the other way, because you will smush your little pointed tip when you put your lid on if you don't. But they give you extra tips too. DIY number 4. So for this project, I am using yet another Dollar Tree piece. This is a red tinsel heart piece, and I showed you a couple of different types of ribbon that I'm going to be using. I also ended up using a third ribbon. So the first thing I'm doing is identifying where the end of this tinsel is, and I am just going to take it completely off of my heart, just unraveling it, and I will go ahead and save that for another project in the future. And then I'm coming in and cutting off all of these little nubs that are surrounding the frame. That was what they used to help secure all of that tinsel on there, and we won't need that for this project. So now I am coming in, I'm starting with my red ribbon, and this is wired ribbon. You could probably do this project with plain ribbon, but I found the wired ribbon to be super helpful because it allowed you to kind of bend it around the form and it kind of helped for everything to stay in place. Now, obviously I'm hot gluing this in places, so it is staying, but you'll see a little bit more what I mean by that in a little bit. I am not gluing the edges of this. I am only gluing the top and the bottom, and you don't need to go crazy with the hot glue at this point. I probably actually even used more than necessary. So I am at the middle here, just making sure that I get my point down, and then I went ahead and I pulled it taut and wrapped it around the point at the other end and made sure that that was secured as well with the hot glue. So I went ahead and did that across the whole length, and here I'm coming in with, I don't know what you would call this. To me, it looks like a gold burlap. So it's like rustic glam or something. I don't know, but it's one of my Costco ribbons. I love the ribbon that I get at Costco because you get 50 yards for $6.99. You really can't beat it. So I am just weaving this in and out and in and out. And you'll see a couple of pieces of ribbon there, this ribbon that I'm working with now over in the corner. I had tried to do the 2 top bumps and then decided I was going to leave that to the end. So I'll come back in with those little pieces and do that in a little bit. So for right now, I am just weaving the ribbon alternating. So now I'm going under and over. So basically the opposite of what I had just done on that first row. And I'm going to do that all the way from top to bottom now. And I'm making sure that as I do this, that I'm staying on top of the plastic form underneath. I'm not going under those little pieces, especially on the edges, because I need to make sure that I can manipulate the ribbon the way that I want it. I hope that makes sense. And I did learn that as I was doing it, because I did not in each case, and I ended up having to correct it. So I'm not sure if I show that, but I wanted to draw your attention to it. So here I'm at the bottom, and you saw that I popped off the ribbon with the glue so that I could get my gold ribbon underneath there, and then I'll secure it again in a minute. So here I am again, I'm coming back in and securing this a little bit better. I'm securing the gold that's kind of overlapping at that corner and just making sure that that's pressed in, and just using a little pick stem to help me secure that so I don't burn my little fingers. So here I am coming in. You see I'm popping off the hot glue right there. That's why I was saying before, you don't need to go crazy with the hot glue, because there are places where you're going, especially around the curves, where you're going to want to take that off and then re-secure it. And this is where the wired ribbon comes in handy, because it's just helping to keep that ribbon in place until I can flip this back over and secure it with the hot glue. So you can see on the right side there, that's not glued right now. It's just holding by itself barely with the wired ribbon. So once I have it in place and where I want it, I'm going to go ahead, I'm just double checking, make sure things are lined up, glue it, fold that back down, and then I'll go back in with more hot glue around the entire perimeter of the heart. Just make sure that everything is nice and secure. And I went ahead and did that all the way around. So once that was done, I'm taking a piece of scrap fabric, because you know I like having my backs of things finished. So taking some scrap material, I just cut off a piece that was going to fully cover the heart. And I'm going to start by snipping the top, because I want to focus on making sure I can do my top curve edge first. So I folded it under and I'm securing it at the V, and then I will start pulling it taut and gluing it in various places around. Eventually everything will be glued all the way around the heart, and I forgot to fold it under right there, so I'm like gluing it down. I'm like, oh wait, I need to make sure that that's folded under. So I peeled it off. The glue was still hot, so I was able to just fold it under and press it down, and it held. So just make sure that you're folding it under all the way around, and just pull it taut from the places where the glue has already been applied. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, I just did that all the way around the perimeter of the heart, and just made sure that the glue was where I needed it, and pulling the fabric taut, and there's that. So now I'm coming in with a little love piece. I did check to see if I might be able to use the one I pulled off, but it was like cardboard, and it was a very thin cardboard. But I happened to have this piece, excuse me, from Michael's, and it had been, I think, 99 cents. And then I had a 20% off coupon for anything that was regular price. So it ended up being like 80 cents. And I'm using my plaster again and just giving it a dry brush all over, because I wanted it to really pop off of the heart. And I felt like leaving it brown, even though it's really, really pretty as is, I didn't feel like it was going to show enough off of the colors of the ribbon that I was using. So just gave it a nice dry brush. And once that was all done, I went ahead and I secured that to the heart. I'm not sure why I felt the need to show so much of the dry brushing, because you get the idea. But once that was done, I used my hot glue. And when you dry brush, I mean, it's really pretty dry, so it doesn't take a lot of effort for it to dry, which is why I didn't even set it aside here. It was fine to go ahead and adhere right onto my project. So there is that. And then I took the hanger that was already on there before, that I had removed at the beginning of the project, and I used a little bit of hot glue. I thought about trying to tuck it in there. So you definitely, if you have some forethought, tuck it in as you are gluing that fabric onto the back of your piece, and then you won't even see the little doodad there, right? And then it'll be even more finished. So that's a little tip, learn from my mistake. But I just used a ton of hot glue, and that puppy was nice and secure. And there you have it. And here we go with DIY number 5. So for this project, I am using a Dollar Tree glass vase and some of their cookie trays. I'm actually only going to be using one of these. It comes in a pack of 2. And I do recommend using gloves for this. I am using my tin snips. You probably could use scissors, but I happen to have tin snips, so I figured I would use those just to make sure I save my scissors. And here's where I was like, you know what, I really need to wear my gloves, because I think that the aluminum edges probably, or is this tin? I'm not sure. But those edges probably can get sharp. So just be careful with what you're doing. And I do recommend wearing gloves if you have them. So I'm just trimming off the edge of this entire piece. And once I have it all cut out, I am going to grab my piercing tool and show you what I do. Actually, before I grab my piercing tool, I'm going to run it around the vase because I wanted to make sure that I had the proper length. So going ahead and identifying how much extra of this that I have, and then I actually am going to trim that off before I get started with my design. Forgot about that part. So once I have that cut down, I am able to go ahead and grab my piercing tool. Now, I had grabbed some of this batting because I wanted something that I could punch through, but you can see this is way too soft. It's bending my aluminum. So I went ahead and grabbed a piece of scrap foam core instead, and that worked perfectly. And I love that the pattern on these cookie trays, it runs in rows, right? Rows and columns. So it made it really easy to make sure that I was keeping my design straight. Now you could also print off a design on your printer, your computer, and tape that to your project and then use that as a guide as well. So I'm actually thinking I might do another project with this type of method and do the same thing, because the other thing I was wishing I had done that I did not for this, you see at the end of my piercing tool here, that flat edge, I totally could have used that edge to smooth out the hearts and make my design pop a little bit more. So lesson learned, if you do this, I would recommend trying that, because I think it'll actually even elevate the project that much more. So here I'm counting off the little squares on the pattern so that I can make sure that my hearts are all lined up and that my design looks symmetrical, because I wanted it to be symmetrical. You can do it however you would like. If you want it to be completely off and different, you can certainly do that too, but just for me, I wanted it symmetrical. Once I had my hearts done, I came in and I punched out home along the bottom. And now, because I'm thinking my design is done, which again, if I had to do over again, I would have done more with it. But I am wrapping it tightly around the glass vase, and then I'm going to grab a straight edge. You can use a ruler. I used a tongue depressor stick because I just had one there. I'm using it as a straight edge to bend over the aluminum, because I want to make sure that that is the way that it needs to be, with no sharp edges. And I am going to go ahead and secure that like that, and then fold over my aluminum or tin to the inside of the vase. And then I will do the same thing along the bottom. So as soon as I get that all folded in, I'm going to start folding over the bottom and making sure that that is nice and secured down, and I'm rubbing it until it gets as flat as I can possibly get it. So once I have that all smoothed out and secured down, I'm actually going to grab a piece of the self-adhesive cork that you can get at Dollar Tree. So if I had thought about it before, I would have done this ahead of time. I had an extra glass vase, same exact one. If you only have one, make sure you do this before you apply your aluminum to your container, just so that it's the right shape. Otherwise, you're just going to end up having to cut it down. So applying that to the bottom, and then I am adding in some lights from the Dollar Tree, so you can kind of see my lights are on high here, so it's harder to see the actual image shining through. But I'm looking at it now, and I'm not real happy with being able to see that edge of the aluminum. So I could have probably folded it over once before doing that, but I decided since I had that rough edge in there, I was going to go ahead and cover it up with some ribbon. So I've just got my length of ribbon. I'm leaving about a 1/2 inch on the outside and tucking the rest of it in. This, I believe, is a 3 inch, maybe it's a 2.5 inch ribbon. I forget how wide it is, but it was sufficient to be able to give a nice little finished edge on the top of my project, and then also cover up the rough edge on the inside. And then I just secured it with some hot glue. And there you have it. And here is our final reveal.
All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you didn't already subscribe, I hope that you'll hit the subscribe button as well as the bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Please do also give me a big thumbs up because it does help support my channel. I appreciate you all. Until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you again for watching. I will see you soon. Take good care. Bye.